Alrighty, good morning, good evening. How is everyone? So, I was told, and it slipped my mind. I thought I had did all of the postmodern theories, but I didn't. So I think this is the last postmodern theory, which is the collaborative therapy approach. It's not one that is like very like huge on a lot of things, because remember, it doesn't really have any phases of therapy. Some of the interventions, it's kind of like iffy with how they are because it's more about dialogue, right? And so these are some of the core symptoms that you see in front of you is postmodernism and social constructivism, right? So it's going to be like similar to your narrative therapy approach, where it's more of like a dialogue relationship. It's more like a conversation relationship that you have with the client, right? The person does not have the problem. The problem is through the relationship and the languages that we use in order to work ourselves through them. The therapist and the client are partners in a dialogue. It is a mutual process. The therapist is not telling the client what to do, how to do it, right? Versus like your strategic therapy, where that therapist is telling the client, this is what you need to do in order to fix this problem. It's a mutual process. The client is the one that is the expert. They know what they need to do in order for them to do what? Identify what it is that they're going on, and also identify what needs to be changed, okay? It happens through dialogue. That is what I was just talking about. Change is going to happen through the dialogue, through the conversations that you are going to be having with the client. It is not a direct approach, and the concepts for collaborative therapy is much different from your modern day theories, okay? Collaborative therapy as well as narrative therapy as well. The not knowing stance, not knowing position, downward stance is where the therapist is the one that is going to be curious. Pretend as if we don't know anything. So we'll be like, tell me a little bit more about that, or I'm not sure I understand. What do you mean? We're going to take that stance where it's like, you know what's going on, and I'm going to pretend like I don't know what's going on in order for us to foster more of that healthy dialogue to get the client to where they need to be, right? But I just said it's open, the conversation flows. It's like this generative talk that you're going to be having in order to help to create what? That change, that new meaning that client wants. One of the things about narrative therapy is the language that a person uses. The language that person uses is what the client focuses on, and that is going to create that reality that client believes to be true. Our jobs as the therapist is to not be the expert and tell them that your way of thinking, the words that you're using is wrong. We don't do that. We simply collaborate with them and help them explore, not help them find these solutions, not help them be like, you need to do this, you need to do that. That's not our role as a collaborative therapist. There are different perspectives. There are multiple perspectives within that room when it comes to using the collaborative therapy approach, or collaborative language is also another way that they will use it. It's a lot of it. It is our job to do what? Accept all of them. Now, there are tons of key terms to this theory, right? We just discussed some of these. Language creates the realities, multiple voices that's going on. The mutual puzzling, that is the what? The shared inquiry, right? That's when the therapist and that client is going to work together in order to make sense of what is actually going on. Again, at the same time, We are not telling our client that's wrong. This is what you need to do. We are working collaboratively with our client, right? Relational responsibility. We need to understand that our clients, the way they view things, their meaning behind things, how they see situations is co-constructed in the relationship. That means that it is made between the dialogue of people. It's created that way. It's not our job to say that's wrong. When through the dialogue that we have, the language that we have, it creates your client's reality. It's what's real to them. Okay? There's inner dialogue, and then there's also the outer dialogue that a person is going to have. It is up to us to recognize both of them. Outer dialogue is what? It's what's being put out there. The inner dialogue is what? The reflective type, what we usually typically don't hear in therapy. It is up to us to bring that out. That is why we take the not knowing stance. Not knowing stance, not knowing position, downward position. It comes in many different terms. It's said in many different ways, depending on which program you're studying from, okay? A collaborative therapist is going to do what? We will share our thoughts, our reflections, our feelings, how we may see things, experiences that we may have in order for us to be what? We're going to be speaking our client's language. We want to be equal to our clients so that we don't feel like we know more than what they know. Okay? Now, with collaborative therapy and narrative therapy, because sometimes they kind of go hand in hand, but collaborative language is different from narrative therapy language, and you will be able to find the understanding. Collaborative language is more so like what? Dialogue, co-constructed language, and the reality. Narrative therapy is more what? You're going to see terms like narrative, letters, right? Externalization. That's what's going to separate it, right? Change occurs as new languages and the narratives is being created. It's not being created because of the therapist. It is being created by what? The dialogue. By what the client is discussing with the therapist. Not because the therapist is saying, that's not right and this is what you need to do. Okay? Now, a lot of the interventions is like, they're simple and they're straight to the point. It's not something where you're like, I'm digging in deep with this, because when it comes to collaborative therapy, it's more where it's like conversational. So it's not interventions that are just like, oh, this is what it is. This is what you need to do. It's like listening, reflective listening, taking a not knowing stance, meaning that you're being curious. So you're asking what kinds of questions? Open-ended questions, not questions that are just like yes or no responses. The therapist is authentic, not where they're just like sitting there observing and then giving feedback. But we are authentically working with the client in order to have that what? That exchange of dialogue with the client. Now, here is the thing. I learned about the reflection team that a collaborative therapist uses from Family Solutions Institute. I didn't even know that collaborative therapy used reflecting teams, but yes, they sometimes use them. There aren't really any set techniques for collaborative therapy, so don't go looking for any, right? You see terms like curiosity, not knowing stance, the reflection team, dialogical exchange, co-constructed, um, client being the expert, I'm taking that downward stance. That's your collaborative therapy. It's not anything that is set in stone, so don't go looking for it. The same way when it comes to the phases of therapy, there are no technical phases of therapy for collaborative therapy. Okay? It is more like a process. And a lot of this stuff is repetitive because you're going to hear me say a lot. It's conversational. You're going to be exploring different meanings with the dialogical conversations. The language is going to create the reality. The new meanings that the client believes in their reality is going to come from what? The dialogue that you are going to have with the client. The client is going to rewrite their own what? It's kind of like the same thing when it comes to narrative therapy, but don't get confused with the two. Okay? Now, again, this is just repetitive because when you see certain words and certain phrases, you'll know when it's collaborative therapy. Not knowing stance, not knowing position, downward position, dialogue, language, language creates new realities. That's collaborative therapy, not narrative therapy. Client as the expert. The client is the expert in narrative therapy as well, but collaborative therapy also uses it as one of their components to set themselves apart from modern day theories, right? Collaborative therapy does not do any type of externalizing the problems or unique outcomes. The meaning, the difference, the change that emerges is done through what? Conversations. And like I said, it's repetitive. Collaborative therapy is not really a long and drawn out theory, so a lot of it is really repetitive. You'll see the same thing over and over again. There is no exact phases for it. There are no set in stone interventions. It just has a flow to the theory, and the meaning is going to be made, and it'll be emerged through what? The conversation, the language, and the dialogue. Okay, conversation is for collaborative therapy, right? The therapist takes a not knowing stance, and the change is created. Here it is again, language and dialogue. Okay, that sums up collaborative therapy. It's not too much that you need to really be heavy on. You can definitely able to tell the difference between collaborative therapy and narrative therapy if and when you do see it on the exam. I have yet to see a question about narrative therapy does not include the terms not knowing stance or not knowing position, depending on which exam program that you are using to study from. But pay attention and keep in mind that collaborative therapy is not the exact same as narrative therapy. It draws from narrative therapy, but is not the exact same as narrative therapy. I have a video for narrative therapy, so when you get the chance, make sure you look at it and understand the differences between both of these theories, okay? I noticed that I haven't done this in a while, and I have never stopped listening to my music in the morning, evening, afternoon, whatever the case may be. But Naomi Rain's newest album, Jesus Over Everything, live from Las Vegas, is beautiful. If you love Maverick City and you love Naomi Rain, I am telling you, please listen to this album. There is not a song on there that I do not can skip over or whatever, but listen to it. She has some really good songs on that album. The Story I'll Tell, that's also Maverick City and Naomi Rain, but this one came out about maybe 5-6 years ago, and I've actually been listening to this song because it's way heavily on me as I take this journey and has been working with each and every one of you. Each and every one of you all that I have met with, that I have spoken with, that I have helped and supported. I have loved listening to your story. I have loved listening to the journey that you took in order to get to where you are. And if you can relate to that, I've talked a lot about crossing paths for a reason. If you want to, please listen to The Story I'll Tell by Maverick City and Naomi Rain. It is beautiful, and it really, really, really does make a difference in my life when I listen to it, especially when it comes to this journey of helping people take and pass the MFT national exam. That's it for tonight. I will talk to you all soon. As usual, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. Leave me a comment. Leave me a message on Facebook. Text me if you have my number. I am here to help each and every one of you.